friends, my name is Joey Balistreri. I'm so glad you're here because last night my mailman came super late and my Potomac treasure box for this month was in the mail. It is called Whispers of Romance and it's one of those boxes that truly speaks to me. I love the colors. They have included some rich chocolate azuki seed beads and some purples and reds and blacks, and it is just absolutely stunning, and there's just a lot of favorites for me in this box. So I have already designed 2 projects that I'm going to do as soon as I show you what's in the box, and I am so excited about both of them. So a few of my little beads and things are missing, but I'm going to go through this unboxing really fast just so you can see what you get. And as always, at the end of the video, when you're finished watching, check that description box because I have links to the Potomac Beads website. They do an amazing job with this treasure box. I love getting it. It's curated, but it's also a bit of a sampler because you get so many different things from multi-hole beads, specialty beads. Sometimes they put pearls in. I love the Potomac pearls. That's not the case this month, but check glass hearts and some really cool check glass shapes. So I love getting this box. So I'm going to just start off with what's in my little dish, and let me grab a piece of wire. This is a round duo in the white Lila Vega luster. It's a really classic check glass color, and it is a 2-hole bead, but it looks like a druck. So you can use these, you know, for bead weaving, and you can definitely use all the holes, but I'm using it in my project today, just stringing it like that in the coolest way. Oh my gosh, I need to talk fast because I want to get to that. It is, my first project is a mixed media, a little bit of macrame with Brazilian waxed cord, some check glass, some wire. It's dramatic and cool and really boho chic and like all the mixed media, and so I'm like so excited. I just want to rush through this. I actually love these 12 millimeter check glass faceted rounds. They are in a deep purple, and all of the check glass, pretty much all the check glass, has a lot of movement, and each bead being a little bit different with the stripes and striations in the glass. And I just love the facets, and I mean, this is just fabulous. You could just, with a 12 millimeter bead, do so much. That could be your earring, one and done. Gorgeous if you need to chunkier beads for a pendant. Just really pretty. And when I looked at these, I even thought about just making a beaded chain with this chunky bead and just a bracelet where I could play with the beads and see all the stripes in the glass. But I don't know if I'll do that or not. But this little bead is one of my favorites. This is also that Lila. I don't know if this one's white. This one's the Vega luster, but this is a little check glass donut, and I love donut beads. I just love these disc or donut shaped beads in all of their forms. Demi rounds is one of my favorite things that I get from Potomac Beads, but this one is amazing because it is also faceted. It's very small. I mean, this is just absolutely gorgeous. This is only a 4 millimeter bead, but when you stack these, you get the most beautiful look, and this is the most stunning spacer. And then I absolutely love this too. These are check glass pentagonal nugget beads, and they're 7 millimeter, and they're also in that beautiful rich purple. And again, all the little stripes, each bead has its own little movement. So lovely. And then up next is these check glass, oh, I'm missing this. I put them over here. The spiral discs. I don't want to forget these. These are check glass spiral discs, and they are just really, really cool. A little bit contemporary. I love the matte black ground, and then the wash with, it's like an AB. So you get a little bit of color that kind of sits on the black. There's a good quantity of those. I also could, you could do a beaded chain with those, and that would be a really stunning bracelet. Okay, let me jump back to the check teardrop beads in 8x6 millimeter, and same thing. Each bead has a little different stripes and a little different movement. What have I got? I always, when I'm filming, always pick up a bead with a blocked hole. I wanted to show you too, kind of compare, but look at that. And I love even stringing these teardrops back to back like that, because to me, when they're together, I've created a whole nother shape. So I love that. But I'm crazy for these beads, and they're in both my projects. And then these are cool. If you guys have been around my channel, you might have started picking up on what beads speak to me. But there is something about pressed check glass bicones. These might be too small for this 20 gauge little wire. They're pretty small, but I can show it to you this way. These are kind of squished down pressed glass bicone beads, and they are only 3mm, but I love them. And I love that I can actually see a little bit through the glass, and we got a really nice quantity. They also make wonderful spacers, and they're in this really pretty kind of a smoke color. So gorgeous. And then I love it when we get seed beads, and in the treasure box, they regularly, pretty much always, try to include some seed beads, but this is an up-and-coming seed bead brand called Azuki, and this is an opaque brown, which is just perfect for the Pantone color of the year. It's an 11-0 seed bead, and I'm using these in my project, my first project. I absolutely just love this color. It's not an ugly brown. It's so beautiful, and I love getting seed beads. If you are new to my channel and you haven't heard this before, I do a little bit of bead weaving, but I can link this in the description box. I have created a playlist for projects using seed beads that is not needle and thread, mostly not needle and thread. So if you love the look of them, but like bead weaving is not your thing, check out that playlist, because I have some really clever and super easy things that you can do. And seed beads are one of the more inexpensive beads to work with. So I love it when Potomac Beads puts those in our box. I just love getting them. And then I did the check glass bicone. So up next is the check flower in heart beads, and they are in this gorgeous matte black, but there's a little bit, it looks like, I don't know what the wash is on these. It might even be AB, but it's just simply outlining the flower and outlining the little texture around the edge of the heart, and they are gorgeous. We got two, so you know the ideas just are flowing for me with these, because you can actually just do a pair of earrings and be one and done, but you can string them this way to make like a focal on a bracelet, or you know, kind of create your own bracelet bar. And for a whole nother look, you can do them that way. I just love, this is a pretty classic check glass shape, but I don't have this opaque matte black with this beautiful wash. I'm crazy about them. I have an entire organizing bin for heart beads, and I love them. And then we also got some 18mm check glass rounds, and these are so cool. They're half metallic and half crystal, and they are just absolutely beautiful. And as I was looking at these, I have an idea for a really cool pendant using one of these beads. So I may put that in a separate video, but look how stunning that bead is. And I mean, the facets are just absolutely bead perfection. And I just love the weight and the feel. It's just a wonderful, wonderful bead. And then I love getting Athena cast. If you are missing Tiara cast, Athena cast is the Potomac Beads metal line. Almost everything comes from Greece. It's a very high quality plating, and they have just pages and pages and pages of metal findings on their website, and I love them. I love working with them. So we got a little package of these gorgeous copper bales, and you will be seeing those in my next video, because I already have designed a project with these, and I think I'm going to be pulling in some leather for that project. We'll see. But you know what happens to me, my boxes that I get and the companies that I work with, they just inspire me with creativity so much. And so like when I'm unboxing to set up for the video, I've already designed like 4 or 5 projects so easily. So if you need ideas with a box that you get, you know, check out my channel and my playlist, because I've been at this for a really long time, so you know, that experience sometimes can help you and maybe save you some time as well. And then we also got a package of the Athena Cast head pins. The ball head pins are my favorite, and I'll show you what we're going to do. I made ear wires out of these. I made dangles out of these. I absolutely love the high quality copper plating on these, and like just thrilled to get that. And then up next are some check glass heart beads. What a beautiful color. I love this rich gold, and it also has a little bit of silver. So the metal mixing on this is really trendy right now, but it's also just lovely, and it leaves you open to stringing with other spacer beads and ear wires in gold or silver or copper. Like with that, whatever your favorite metallic add-in is, it works with this. So I love getting those. So we got, looks like we got 5 of those. And then we also got some Potomac Crystal Rose Montes, and these are the coolest little beads. I'm thinking of a separate project for these. I'm going to try to get my fingers out of the way and turn this over. You can actually string this little bead, this and that wire is going to be way too thick. Let me go down to a thinner wire. You can actually string through either direction on these. You can put your thread or a fine gauge wire or like a 49 strand bead stringing wire through this way, but you have a channel going in the opposite direction like a T on these. And they are little crystals that are pronged, and they are absolutely stunning. And we got a huge quantity of them. So this, like strung the right way, this could look like fine jewelry. I am so excited to play with these. So there may be an upcoming design with that too, but what a lovely, the Potomac Treasure Box always puts some kind of staples and some lovely check glass, but something special, a little pop in almost every box, and I think that might be it in this box. But we are not done there. We got 2 strands of faceted check glass rounds, and they are in my absolute favorite colors. This one is a 4mm, and I'm just dying over this color. I've already taken some off for my samples of our projects. I'm just thrilled. Like I could have a million of these beads and probably use every single one of them. And then coordinating a check glass faceted round in 3mm is this beautiful little kind of dusty rose, and it's more of a crystal. This one's more opaque, and when you put them together, look how gorgeous they are. I have a separate organizing bin for my faceted check glass rounds. I love getting those. I just find that I reach for them in so many projects. And then one more thing that was really cool in the treasure box this month are these laser cut charm mix, a mix of like a bouquet of charms. I cannot talk. I don't work with these that much, but these are so fun to do with acrylic markers. You can frame them out with like seed beads. You can glue things onto them. And for these, they do make perfect charms if you need something lightweight, like your bookmarkers that, you know, I love to make bookmarkers. Also, like if you did need lightweight earrings, I have some upcoming projects that are for like special little gifts, and these will be perfect for that. They're just gorgeous, and there's a whole bunch of, let me just dump them out. There's a whole bunch of different shapes. It really is like a bouquet mix. Let me just show you some of the shapes. Look at that, the sunflower, like a little lotus flower, some sort of a wildflower or daisy, a pansy. Oh my, oh, even a little bud. So what a beautiful little mix. And if you even loaded a whole thing with these charms, like embellish them, you can glue crystals onto these. You can do so much with these. And they're very lightweight, but very detailed. So if you even loaded up a whole bookmarker or bracelet with these, it would, you know, be full and beautiful, but lightweight. So they definitely have their place. So I am going to move a few things out of the way and jump into the projects without further ado. I have found just a month ago or so these cool little trays for seed beads. It was a set of two. There's a larger one and then this smaller one. And when you're all done, the beads that are left over that you didn't use, you just open this and go back to your tube and dump them right in. No mess, no seed beads all over the mat, and it makes stringing really easy. So I have put a few of the chocolate seed beads, the Azuki seed beads, in this little dish for stringing. And then here is the first project. This is so cool. I am doing a sort of a macrame knot on a piece of wire. I used 18 gauge wire, and I am macrame knotting various beads and the seed beads, all from the collection, onto wire, making a little spiral out of it and a dangle. And I even did a little fringy section on my Brazilian waxed cord for like a little boho tassel. So this is really like elegant gypsy. It is a mixing glass and metal and thread, cord, and a little bit of spacer beads, and it is a mix of gold and copper. So that's very specific to the bohemian style, is a mixing media, but yet it's dramatic and elegant. And I just love the way this turned out. I really enjoyed mixing things up on this earring. So what I started with is about a 4-inch piece of 18 gauge copper wire. And I also started with my smallest one-step looper, the 1.5 millimeter. I'm using this tool for both of my projects because I make a lot of jewelry and it saves my hand, but also because when I'm making earrings, I love that I effortlessly can get the loops exactly the same. So, I make really nice, simple loops with my pliers, and if you like doing them that way, you totally can. I'm just showing this tool because it just really works for me. And the other thing is, if we're measuring, like you'll see in the second design, measuring was really important for the earrings to look right. And I don't have to use a ruler or actually measure anything with this tool, and I'll show you in the second project what that looks like. But when there's no beads on your wire, you just put the wire in just a little bit past that back jaw of the plier, and you do not have to take your cutters and make a fresh blunt cut because the tool does that for you. As I'm controlling it here, and this is 18 gauge wire, so it is a little bit harder to turn, but there's the tiny little bit that it cut off, gave me a fresh blunt cut. I'm gently, you don't need to pop this tool closed, but I'm closing it. And now when it's closed all the way, I can see that my wire is going off in this direction, and I just need to pull it down. So that loop is now centered on the wire. And for most projects, that is a really good look, not to have your loops going off to one side. And then I'm just gonna take the tool away, and I have a perfect loop. Sometimes it won't close all the way if you put the wire in a little bit sideways or didn't push it all the way to the back of the tool, but it's a simple loop. It is meant to be opened and closed anyway, so I'm fine with that. And I also, when I close my loops, I like to do a little bit of work hardening. So that is the first step to this earring. Let me just rearrange things so I have space to work here. I'm going to take about a 20-inch piece of 0.5 millimeter Brazilian waxed cord, and I happen to have this metallic gold thread one in my stash, but there's so many colors. Like I have a really pretty dark red, a beautiful purple, a chocolate would work. So I just happen to have this metallic, and I did want to mix in a little bit of gold. I love the mix of gold and copper, so I have done that, and I just thought the metallic gold on the copper wire looked really great. So to start out with, this is not rocket science, just tie a knot, just a simple overhand knot going around the wire. And I just tend to use my pliers to help me with everything. It's like an extra pair of hands. And so one of the secrets as I build this earring is to choose a front and kind of hold it in that position so that the earring is nice and neat. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to just pull this. You can even use your pliers to help you. I am going to make this loop going parallel to my mat, my front, and my cut or my little tail of my Brazilian waxed cord going off to this side, and that is always going to be my front. So as I build this earring and tie my knots, I'm not going to get it twisted or tangled up because I'll always center myself in this position. Okay, so I'm going to start, whoops, I already sorted out all my beads over here in this dish. I'm going to start with one of these beautiful pentagonal beads and thread that right onto the wire and bring it right up to the top. And then I'm going to let this cord just lay beside this bead right here. And I'm going to lay it over the top of this cord. Let me get it in position. It gets easier as you use up a little bit of your length, but I'm going to lay it over the top. Let me get my thumb out of the way so I can show you. The cord is laying on top of my wire, and now I'm going to loop it behind and come up through that loop that I have made and pull it tight. So all I did is make like a half of a knot around the cord, and I'm just going to pull it tight just like that, and that's half of my knot. So through the whole earring, you're going to add a bead, do that little knot, and then do another one without a knot. So same thing, I'm going to make a loop, right, laying the cord on top of this eye pin that I've made, and then I'm going to come up through that loop and then pull it tight. Get my little tail out of the way. And so as you can see, the wire has twisted in my hand, but I'm just going to bring myself back to center. It's like a yoga class, back to center, and pull it tight. And just make sure that that loop is parallel to my mat. My bead is facing that way. This thread or cord is going down the right side, and I'm always going to be working on my right side. Okay, so let me look at my first earring and see what my little pattern was. I want to do that again. Okay, so next I picked up a seed bead, and let me see if I did. I took my little very fine scissors. This does go, the 0.5 millimeter does go through an 11/0 seed bead, but I just did like a very sharp angled cut. And when I'm working with Brazilian wax cord, I rarely stiffen the ends with super glue or clear nail polish, but you can if it gives you a more comfortable stringing experience. But as you can see, it goes through super easily without doing anything. So I'm just going to pull that little seed bead right down to my last knot and just push it into place and just repeat the same thing. Make a loop that is laying on top of that copper wire, and then come behind the copper wire up through the loop. And like this was much easier on my sample when I wasn't filming, because I'm trying to make sure you can see how I tied the knots and keep my fingers out of the way. But if you're not under a camera, this is a lot easier and so fun, because this unfolds between your very eyes. So now I just want to make sure that I pull my cord down at the bottom of the seed bead, and now I'm going to do another knot without a bead. So through the whole design, and keep pulling yourself back to center, use that loop as your guide. And same thing, I'm just going to lay my cord on top of the wire, get a hold of it here, and go behind the wire and up through the loop. And you're just going to do that every single time, and then pull it tight. I'm leaving this little tail because that's also like a marker for me, but I do want to be careful not to catch it in my other knots. And just pull tight. And bring yourself back to center again, and make sure you've pulled this kind of down a little bit and just scrunch it up. And since the first earring is always the easiest because I just made it, and now I have to kind of figure out what comes next. And the next thing that I did is one of these teardrop beads, and I did it with the smaller end facing up. So, yep, this way. Because I used this bead a second time in the design, but I faced it in the opposite direction. And when I put the twist in it, you know, it did sort of shift things. So I even thought this design, it was so beautiful when it was just a linear, like a stick earring. And I even considered just doing it as a stick earring, which is another possibility. But I decided to play with twisting it. So same thing again, I'm going to, you know, make sure that I'm back to the front of my design and lay that bead next to the wire and make a loop on top of the wire and then come behind the wire and up through the loop. So it is literally the same thing through the whole earring. And just pull it tight, let that little teardrop bead just kind of lay parallel to the wire, and repeat with no bead. A loop, come up through the loop, making sure, so let me show you, let me get my fingers out of the way. I'm going to pull this and show you so you can see that I'm always making sure that I've, you know, gone behind the wire and up through the loop every single time. And then when I pull, it loop, you know, makes that pretty little sort of macrame knot around the wire. Okay, so I did, you know, one knot with a bead, one empty knot, and now I'm going to do, let's see, what was next on my design. Next, I did 2 seed beads, so one at a time. I didn't string them together. So I'm just going to thread one on and go down to my, where I stopped, push that bead into place and repeat. Make a loop on top of the wire, come from behind the wire up through that loop and pull it tight. So I've just made a macrame knot again around the wire. And one more time, I'm going to repeat the same thing now with no bead. So you're doing one of them after you've strung the bead, and then one of them with no bead. And that's the pattern. And always working from the right. I'm not letting this twist around as I do my next knot. I'm keeping everything on the right side of my earring. I'm just going to pull this tight. And my design on this one is pinch and twist and add another seed bead and just repeat that. When you're putting the seed beads on, you do have to make sure that when you tighten your knot, that your cord is at the bottom of the seed bead and ready for your next knot or your next bead or wherever you're at in the pattern. It does sometimes want to kind of loop around to the top, but that's why I said make sure you're always facing forward, always working on the right, and you won't lose your place in your knotting. And if you needed to set this down and go do something and come back, it's very easy to pick up right where you left off when you work, you know, really neatly like that. So see, the cord wants to go up, that's okay. There's a light coating of wax on the Brazilian waxed cord, and so when I tighten it and give it a pull, it is in the position that I need it to be in. And I'm going to keep going like that, just adding these beads on in the order. Oh, I'll show you the next one. So I did the 2 seed beads here, and then I used one of these 2-hole beads, the round duos, but I just chose a hole and I just let this little bead kind of ride side of my wire. So just like that, the 0.5 millimeter cord does go through it very easily, and so I just let it hug the side of my wire the same way that I did the teardrop bead and did the same thing. So I finished the design with 3 seed beads. And then I just did 4 or 5 knots just at the end of my wire, just plain, no seed beads, just the same thing that I've been doing, making sure that my wire is on top, or my cord is on top of the wire and then goes behind the wire and through the loop. And I'll just do one more and just pull it really tight. And as I said, always pulling myself back to center. I'm using this as a marker, keeping everything on the right, pushing everything up as I did my macrame knot. So this will be my last one, my last loop over, and come behind my wire and up through the loop and pull. That will be my last one. And just come back to center. It reminds me of my yoga class. Come back to center and just pull it tight. And then what I did next is left this hanging out without a loop, and I used this little stepped bail mandrel that I have. I always link it in the description box because it's so handy. I use this too for making heart shapes with wire, but you could use a marker, a Sharpie marker, a pen, anything that you can get your spiral in. And for me, this is always going to be the tricky part, is getting my 2 earrings to match. And there's really no way to put these together and do them together. So I'm just going to do what I did on the first one and just use the fattest part of this. And I'm going to lay my last little knots right on there. And I'm just going to wrap this around. And it's not going to stay like this. I made adjustments with my pliers, but I'm just getting my spiral shape and just laying my beads on this, and then I'll just pull it away, and that just gives me a start. And then from here, this is hand sculpting. This is very artisan, and I am going to like lay this out here. And let me do something else. Let me move this out of the way. Okay, and that way I can kind of match. So a couple of things, as I was doing the second earring, I was thinking this would be absolutely gorgeous to go down to 20 gauge wire and just do seed beads on the edge of the wire. That would be a whole nother look. This would also be gorgeous to make it even longer and maybe do more of a dangle and do a pendant this way. So, so pretty. Okay, so I am going to, first of all, this is going to attach to my ear wire. So I'm going to turn this up and pull this up because, can you see, I'm looking at it as if my ear wire attaches right there. So I'm going to start with my shape there, and then I'm going to pull this down and just hand sculpt this. I will, if you guys have watched me, if you're not new here, you know that I fiddle with things until I have it absolutely perfect. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So let me just have a look and see. That's actually pretty good. Get this little thread over here. That's actually pretty good. So at this point, before I work on getting my spiral to match, I'm going to come back here to the very end of my last knot with my same one-step looper and put that wire through the guide hole this time. And I'm going to pretend that my last knot is the bead. So I'm pushing it in so that the front jaw of that tool is right where my last knot finished. And I'm going to let it make that little fresh cut for me and make my loop. And same thing, I'm pulling everything down so that even though it's a twisty thing, I've got my loop centered right here on this wire. So my last loop is in there, and so everything is pretty secure. And now I'm going to play with my shape and get it just the way that I like it. And I will tell you that I put a dot of glue at the top here and here before I trimmed away my threads. I am a gluer. It just made me feel secure. So I'm going to just do this with my hands. I am going to add a dangle, so I'm going to turn this down, and I've just make sure that loop stays closed. Just take a second and play with my shape. Okay, I am pretty happy with that. They're almost identical. And so I am going to use, I don't normally use gel Loctite super glue for macrame and that kind of thing. I normally just use beater's glue, but I'm going to use a little dot of this and do it right now so that while I make my final drop for this earring, this can be drying. And I am using ever so tiny. I'm just going to use the little buttons here and get a bead on the tip, and I'm just going to come to that knot. You could use E6000 here. It just takes overnight really to set up, and I want to be done with this, but I also want this to be I want it to be secure. And since this is like cord or textile on wire, it moves a little bit, which is why I said always come back to center and don't allow yourself to get twisted up in the design. I'm going to do the same exact thing on this end, and it's always advisable to, if you're gluing knots, to do this before you trim away and let it sit up a little bit. So I'm just going to get a little bit. This dries clear, and I just now know it will be secure. So I'm just going to set that here while I work on the last part of the earring. By the time I'm ready to attach, it should be dry. So I'm going to take one of those beautiful ball head pins, and let me show you the sample again. I just created a little drop. I did use a gold-plated wavy disc spacer from my stash because since I used the metallic gold cord, I wanted to add in just a little dot of gold. And also it gives you the options of doing a copper ear wire or a gold ear wire, because I did, mix the metals slightly. And I'm just going to repeat the stack that I did. And isn't this gorgeous? This is what I mean about these donut beads, and they are faceted. I know it's small, but look how gorgeous that is. It just adds so much to a little bead stack. It's just like a gorgeous little drop. And I'm going to repeat that same thing with my one-step looper. I do have beads on now, so I'll put this wire through the guide hole, gently close the tool here. I can watch what's happening in that I am not stressing my beads here. So I am going to gently close it. See, I can see when I started to close that there's about 1 millimeter of space there. Let it make that nice blunt cut, and it continues to make the loop. As I'm closing, I'm still maintaining control here. I have not closed it all the way, but on this stack, it's fine. I can close it. I am not putting any stress on my beads. Now I'm just going to pull this down so that loop is centered on my head pin. And I can see that this one did not close all the way. And let me get, I get so many questions about this. It's fine because I'm going to open this anyway and add it to the bottom of that earring, but I'll go ahead and close it a little bit, and then I'll show you one of the things that causes that. I do it sometimes when I'm using this tool if you're not paying attention or if you get to going fast, so I can fix the loop. But let me grab another head pin and I'll just show you what causes that. When you put your head pin or your wire in this tool, if you lay it against this very back, see this back plate here? If you lay it against the very back and then go through the guide hole, or not, but make sure that your wire is flat to the back, it will most of the time close your loop perfectly for you. But I'll get in the habit of just kind of putting it in the middle or even out here. Can you see? I don't know if you're able to see because the tool is so dark, but if I'm out here rather than against the back plate, sometimes that causes problems with getting a good loop. So I have been getting a lot of questions about this, people not being able to get a good loop with it, and I think that might be one of the issues. So I'm glad that happened because it gave me a chance to show you. Okay, I am going to come to this. My super glue is pretty dry. It's still a little bit tacky. The gel is a good super glue because it does give you a little bit of time to, kind of change things around or reposition things if you need to, but it doesn't take as long to dry as the like E6000 or the beater's glue. And I'm just going to come really close, and when that glue is really dry, I may even come in and do it closer, but I have a nice clean knot at the top. And then on this end, I am going to tie a knot just kind of beneath where I stopped my macrame loop. So just work it down just right about there. Just a little knot, and that's going to allow me to create some fringiness. So I'm going to come right about here. I should have gotten scissors. This waxed cord is not happy about my pliers. And then I just usually use my knotting tweezer, and I'm going to just separate those fibers to make a little micro mini tassel, little fringiness here. And so I'll say here what I always say with this type of thing or with wire is, before you trim it away, try it. Like, give yourself a knot, make some fringe, try it and see if you like the way it looks. If it added a texture, if it added a design element. Because if it didn't, you can always add a dot of glue, let it dry, and then trim it away and just have a clean finish the way that we did at the top. You know, you can always go back and make it look like that. But I decided, since I was going for a boho look, I decided to do a little like fringy tassel. And if I change my mind, I can always add a little glue and snip that right off. But I don't like to lose the opportunity to try an extra little embellishment in my design. So now I'm going to come to my simple loop and open it, and I'm going to add it. And again, I want to find the front of my earring. This is the front. So when I add my dangle, I'm adding it so that the opening of that loop will always be to the back of the earring when I close it. So it's just a detail in connecting, but it adds quality to your work when you do things like that, because then when I look at this, it's seamless on the front. You don't see the opening of a loop. Maybe somebody else would never notice that, but for me, it's just a little detail that I add to my work. And then I am ready to add this to this ear wire, and these are really cool. These are from Potomac beads. I believe these are Athena cast, and they have the coolest little opening in the back. You have to kind of get in there with your pliers, and I'm just going to add this again, making sure it's the front of my earring, and just you kind of get in there and bend that back and make sure it's touching the back of the earring, but you don't see the loop when it's on. And so that little boho chic, elegant, mixed media, I mean, how cool is this? Gold, copper, Brazilian waxed cord, check glass beads, little metal spacers. It's like all the things, and it's so fun and flirty. And like I said, you could try all kinds of variations on this design with maybe finer gauge wire and do the whole bit of knotting with just seed beads. You could leave this straight. I really thought about doing that, like leaving it as a stick earring so you could, you know, see everything lined up the way that I knotted it. But I'll put some better pictures up at the end for sure. And I'm done with the seed beads now. And the next earring, I think it took me all of 3 minutes to make this earring. So let me show it to you first, and then I'll show you how easy it is and what I was talking about earlier with not having to measure if you're using the one-step looper. So this is a very sweet, dainty little earring that just features the beads that were in the box. I added in a twisted gold jump ring, and I added in one tiny little gold spacer, and the ear wire and the drops for this are the head pins that we got in the box. They're just so beautiful. So I'll show you first. I mean, I made the ear wire. It's super simple. I'll show you how I did one. Let me get another head pin and I'll show you. I went ahead and made them because I do tend to like to do them together. So I started with my round nose pliers and just grabbed the ball. And then all I'm going to do is kind of make a little mini loop, bringing the ball back to the wire. So when I take it away, I just created a little loop. And then you can use any bail making plier. You could even use your round nose pliers. They are cone shaped, so I really prefer a bail making plier, and this is my favorite. I always link this in the description box. This is fabulous for making jump rings because you have such a nice long bail and you're unencumbered for making a long coil. But I am just going to use the fatter bail is what I'm going to be wrapping around, so that means putting the skinnier one to the front and placing it so the ball is touching. And then I'm just going to wrap this wire around, and as far as you want. You can make adjustments when it comes off the tool, and when I take it away, it's basically done. So you can leave this long like this, and I will on this one, or you could trim it. But I'm just going to use my flat nose pliers, and again, so that I don't have to measure. If I were doing 2 of these, they would be exactly the same. Just come to the end, make sure it's flush there, and so that space, the amount of space that's on this flat nose plier, just kick it out and your ear wire is done that fast. So if you ever need ear wires and you have a ball head pin, it is super easy. Now these are such high quality. This is so smooth and soft. I don't need to buff it, but you can use, let me show you what I have. If you have any roughness because you don't want to scratch your piercing, you can use like a buffing block that you would use to kind of scrub a little bit of paint off of metal. You can use any kind of a file that came with a set of bead reamers for clearing bead holes. That works really well. As I said, I don't need to do it on this because these head pins are such nice quality, but I also love my battery operated. It's a battery operated bead reamer, but I don't have the reamer attachment. I have a little wire rounder. It's like a little cup, and it fits over. You put your wire in the little cup and then press the button, and it will round out the wire. Like I said, it's just not necessary on these head pins, but if you're making earrings for a website or a craft fair or even for gifts, those little finishing touches make things so lovely. Okay, ear wire done. You guys are not going to believe how fast and easy this is. So I did my cuts for both earrings at the same time, and I would advise that, but I took 6 head pins, and I took 2 of them and left them their length that they came, and then I took 2 of them and cut them at my shortest length, and then I took 2 of them, matched them up, and cut them at a medium length, and that is how I got the 3 different, have my beads hanging at 3 different sizes or lengths. And again, I'll put pictures up at the end because I know like this way you can't really see how beautifully they dangle and how the beads land perfectly alternated, or not competing for space with each other. Like doing this, they land beneath each other and not lined up, so they're not competing for space, and when it's in the ear it just dangles and hangs beautifully. And so here's my 3 sizes of my head pins. I can zoom in a little bit so you can see. And here's why I said I love the one-step looper, because instead of trying to measure and figure out what I'm doing, I'll start with the shortest one, and my bead pattern was one of the donut beads that are faceted. I just brought in this little gold disc spacer from my stash, and that is my drop. So without measuring, I'm going to come to my one-step looper and just put this in just past the back jaw of the plier, and I'm careful this time to lay it against this back plate. I'm holding it in position in my hand here. Let me zoom out again. So it's against the back plate, and right here, as long as my wire is past the back jaw when I close, it's going to make that little cut. I don't even know where it went, and make that loop for me, and then I just pull it down so I'm centering that loop on the wire, and when I take it away I have a gorgeous loop. I always put my pliers to everything, so I want to make sure it's closed really well, and I'll just work harden it with a little bit of force, opening and closing my pliers. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other 2 without measuring at all. So the next one, let's see, let me get them. make sure the beads are in the right order. My yes, my medium head pin got the purple pentagonal bead, and I'm going to repeat the same thing. Put the wire in just past the back jaw against this back plate. The tool makes that little cut for me, makes the loop. I pull my wire down so the loop is centered. When I take it away, it's beautiful. And so, as I said, you can do this with your pliers for sure, but for an earring like this, every single loop is exactly the same, and I'm not having to measure. So I put the teardrop bead on the longest wire and repeat. So I just took a little twisted jump ring, and these, I don't remember where I got these, but they are so thick. And I am going to first thread my ear wire on. So now I can see, you know, that that's the front, and I'm going to do the same thing where the opening of my simple loops is going to the back of this earring. So let me thread these on in the direction I want. I can mirror these. So I'm going to start with the little small disc beads, and the next one would be my teardrop. It's the longest length, and the last one will be the little purple pentagonal bead. And you guys, this earring is done. This was so fun. I feel like if you were doing a craft fair, or if you needed product for a website pretty fast, you could use your bead soup on this, like use up beads that you have because you don't need very much, but that little earring is done. And I'll show you just one more idea before I put the final pictures up at the end. But I just love this little pair of earrings. They are so stunning, and for me, like, this box was gorgeous with the mix of purples and reds and chocolates, and even the dusty pink, let's see, I have it right here, even the dusty pink faceted check glass rounds with the red and purple. They are very regal colors. They're also very boho colors. Those kind of rich jewel tones are very boho, so it just spoke to me with this earring. But the other thing I wanted to show you is if you have links left from beautiful chain, like I have these 2 copper links that are embossed on both sides. It's one of my favorite chains. You can also use that for this design instead of a jump ring. You can use a leftover link and hang your hang your bead dangles from a pretty link. So like if you don't have a twisted jump ring, don't ever throw your little links that you have cut away from chain, because they can be a beautiful embellishment in your earrings. So I will stop talking. Please don't forget to check my description box. I put a lot of information in there, all of my tools, any cool thing that I've found, I share that with you. And as always, if you don't get the treasure box, don't forget to shop the Potomac Beads website. It's such a great resource for jewelry makers. There are so many different choices and sizes and finishes on seed beads, crystals. The Potomac pearls are gorgeous. They're a very organized website. You can find what you want, and really high quality clasp. The Athena cast line is wonderful. Here's some little examples of it in this month's box. And they do another box every month called the Kit Edition, and so my link will take you to that as well. If you are a person that loves the handiwork, but you need things already curated and you just don't want to bother pulling all of that together, they've done that for you in their other box, and it is also wonderful. If you use the link in my description box, it helps out my channel. It doesn't do anything to you or change the price of anything, but it does help my channel, so it is greatly appreciated. And I thank you all so much for watching. Please subscribe, tap the bell notification, and a thumbs up is always appreciated, because I will definitely be back with another project with this box, and it's gonna be a really cool one, I think. My idea, anyway, is just making me want to jump into that. So I will see you in the next video. Ciao, friends.